Hello, socialites. Welcome back to Survivor Social, the Survivor podcast where we discuss Survivor with a focus on the social elements of the game. My name is Tegwyth, and as always, I'm here with my incredible co-host, Cara. Cara, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about the episode. Sad to see my draft team deteriorating each week, but it's okay.
It is what it is. I totally get that. But we also have a very exciting guest with us. You may recognize him from other episodes of Survivor Social because he's one of the founding members. David, oh my God, what an icon. How are you? I'm so excited to have you here.
It is so eerily familiar. It's almost like I've been here before. This is crazy. I'm so glad to be back. I'm so happy to be connecting with both of you, talking about Survivor 47. Can't wait to dig into it. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. What did you think about the episode? Overall thoughts before we get into the specifics?
It was an emotional roller coaster, and I also could not get over the splice scenes, the additions of Sue being a little saucy and a little sassy. There were so many moments that I enjoyed, and I cannot wait to talk to you more about it.
I'm so excited. It's going to be a great episode. I can just feel it. But before we dig into the episode, make sure to like and subscribe to Survivor Now if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you are. We love having you guys in this community. And as a reminder, we are live right now. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, not concerns, I mean, I guess concerns, let us know in the comments. We'd love to talk to you guys. And we do get to your questions later on in the episode. So if you have any questions, make sure to put those in the comments and we'll get to them. But let's dig into the episode. I want to start off with Andy's edit again. I know I started with this last but it's like, why are the editors doing this? So he had this episode, like the spider, weaving the web, and he showed all of the potential, prey that he was going to go after. And then not even, 10 minutes later, it's a slow motion of him biting a ball. Like, what is going on with this edit? Carrot, can you give us some insight to this?
Like, there's two things we can guarantee each episode of the season. It's going to be an Andy edit and Teeny. Andy and Teeny are like the two guaranteed each episode. But I don't know. Like, I'm so leaning towards like this is just an Andy's winner edit. And like I'm perfectly fine with it being predictable if he wins in the end. Like I would love that. But
it's
yeah.
It's David, coming at it with fresh eyes, how did you feel like with that montage that we saw, and then not even like 5 minutes later, the slow motion of it all during the reward challenge?
Yeah, just to clarify for the audience, I have not been watching Survivor 47 live. I'm a binge watcher, so I like to watch things once they've all been released. And so this is the first episode of Survivor 47 that I've seen. And I've heard whispers in the wind of things related to Andy, and I knew that he's been sort of a quirky character, but the fact that the episode was quoting something that he said already gave me an indication that this is someone they want to highlight. And then, like you said, all of those highlights and montages of him, they're very Andy-centric. And I can't tell if they're taking him seriously or if he's going to be like a sugar character from Gabon where they like put a lot of spotlight on him, but he doesn't ultimately win because no one respects him. But he's definitely in the driver's seat in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I think this is... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Cara.
No. So we get like a lot of Andy in the beginning of the episode, I feel like. And then like we don't really see him as much as the episode goes on. And I feel like that's been happening like the last episode. Yeah. Definitely the last one. Which I think is interesting too.
It's very interesting. And it's very like, it's somebody in the comments of here said it's the 4th episode he's named, which is very... It's giving Carolyn too, it's like, and that's something like I think Sugar is a very good comparison because I think that like, I think you could also compare Carolyn to Sugar a little bit because we saw behind the curtain of what Carolyn was doing, but Carolyn gets to the end, final tribal council, and no one on the jury really saw that. And they were like, well, we don't have any proof. You don't have any proof to back up what you're saying. And so I just think it's like, I did a TikTok earlier where I called his edit like the medium place, where I don't know if you guys know the Good Place TV show, but like there's a good place and a bad place. And the medium place is like, you can watch a movie, but it's only like one VHS and like half of it is like blurry, or like you can have beer, but like all of the beer is warm. And that's kind of how Andy's edit feels. It's like, he's not getting a dodo edit and he's not getting a fully mastermind edit. He's getting something where we get both, where it kind of makes both even like it more interesting. And I'm kind of loving it. I'm actually not kind of loving it. I'm very loving it. And I just think it's keeping us on our toes because, you know, us, Edgic, a lot of people think that we know all, and we don't, you know, and it's just the editors like to play with us. And I think it's so fun. Daryl says Andy's getting the antagonist edit. Maybe. And then we have this other comment. Rozafa says, I feel like Andy's edit is less of a winner's edit and more of them setting him up to come back for 50. That could also be the case. I think he's enough of a character to come back for 50.
I think so. I would love to like just see what like Andy's reaction is to like watching these episodes and watching his edit, because I feel like if this was me getting the same edit as him, I feel like I would love it. I feel like I'd be like just giggling the whole time. Like it's so fun. So I would love to know like what his thoughts on his edit are and like how he's being perceived.
Yeah. I definitely want to hear that. And I think, you know, while we're talking about Andy, I also think that we're seeing substance of his game too. It's not just like funny, silly moments. We're seeing a little bit of substance. And David, I'll go to you. We saw a moment where, you know, he basically, I think he went up to Sue, and just kind of was like started talking to her. And we kind of saw him going to a lot of different people and say, hey, I want to work with you. Hey, you're my number one. And it wasn't really in a negative light. How does that, David, like, feel to you in terms of his social game? Do you think he's overplaying? Do you think he's playing it just right?
Well, I don't really know where Andy's coming from, but I've gotten the impression that he has been discredited in terms of his quality and his trajectory in the game. But something has happened where he has a lot of options now. And if you have that chance to capitalize on that and talk to a lot of people and make a lot of bonds, I say do it. You're only on Survivor maybe once, maybe twice. So you've definitely got to capitalize on the fact that if people are willing to listen to you, talk to them. What does it hurt? If they're going to laugh you off, they would have laughed you off anyway. So you might as well maximize it, right?
Yeah. If you're getting laughed off, might as well maximize the amount of money that's going to go into your pocket while it's happening, you know?
Merch. You capitalize on that.
Literally. It's just so interesting. And Cara, how did you feel about that moment where, you know, when we normally see people going from person to person saying, hey, I want to work with you. Hey, you're my number one. It's usually in a negative light. And this didn't feel very negative. What did you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I do think people still are discrediting Andy still from episode 1, day 3. Like, I feel like no one is taking him as serious as they should be taking him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It isn't negative. Like everything that's happening is good for him. Like he is in such a good position between all these different people where he's in the know of what's happening, where he's planting seeds with other people and no one's saying anything about him. So
and now he's even going to be in an alliance called it might be an alliance called the Underdogs. And who was that? That was loud. Andy, Sam, Rachel, was it Sam and Rachel and Teeny?
I think.
This is very interesting because I think this is the first time that Andy really is going to be a part of an alliance. And I feel like they're going to have some traction and some power moving forward because, you know, you got to get those single players, you gather them together and, you know, you form a cohort and you might even have the majority. And I'm really excited to see where this Underdog alliance, if it goes anywhere, where it goes. I love it. But we have somebody, Daryl, again. Says,
no.
Episode brutal. Oh,
I hope not.
I kind of am worried for him every episode, but I mean, I could kind of see it, but no.
I think Genevieve goes next. She has to.
I'm shocked she didn't go this episode.
If you on this episode, I think that would have been the better move.
Do you think that, because I do think Tuku is a real threat, 4 strong.
But like, are they 4 strong? Like,
I don't know. You know, you saw how Kyle felt about voting for Gabe. He did not want to do that. He was really not looking forward to voting for his friend. And he ended up doing it because he couldn't turn the tide. And yeah, Sue doesn't really like Kyle, but I feel like they're good at putting off their antagonistic tendencies because they realize that 4 strong is pretty impressive this late in the game. How do you feel about that, David?
Yeah, I totally think that's a threat. When you've got, this kind of harkens back to Survivor 44, where you've got like 2 factions going through the people with the larger amount. And I remember covering this with you, Tegwyth, and being like, yeah, those people on, what was it, Ratu? They're fucked because they have the larger numbers, and like the Tika people are probably going to slide through. And guess what they did? The Tika people just slid through. Also, while I have my attention here, I would like to say, does anyone else feel like Kyle reminds them of Ian Rosenberger from Survivor Palau? Because I'm totally seeing that. I'm mixing like Keith Nail and Ian. Yes? No?
Yes. 1000%. There are times I look up at the screen and I think it's Ian. 100%. Like I think and he's also very good at challenges. This is his 4th immunity win.
Yeah.
Crazy. It's giving Ian. And I will say, when I posted about him winning 4 immunities or whatever, people were like, he didn't win 4. He actually came in 3rd on the other one. And I've said that too. But like he wore the necklace 4 times. That's very impressive.
Yeah.
That's more than most people.
Do you think now that Gabe is gone, it's a better situation for the 3 Tuku, or it puts more eyes on them and opens them up as like Kyle up as another target? I mean, I guess Kyle always was gonna be a target, but like are eyes on him more now?
I kind of think that what is going to happen here, and this is my conspiracy. Maybe it's not a conspiracy theory, but if you remember at the Next Time on Survivor last episode, so episode 9, we saw a little bit of Sue going, oh, Kyle's the worst. I hate Kyle. Kyle, boo, boo, boo. I hate him. And then I want to kill Kyle, whatever. And then we saw that same little bit this episode, but this was after, I'm pretty sure, after he had won immunity. So it did not matter to the story of the episode. He was not going home. He was not the person that it was, going to be. And so I'm like, what is the point of them showing us this when it really doesn't have anything to do with the story? So my conspiracy theory is next week, Sue is going to be pissed at Caroline.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and you know what? I was thinking about this. It all goes back to Caroline finding out that Sue has an idol. Because I feel like if Caroline didn't know that Sue has an idol, Caroline probably would have clued Sue in on what was happening. And then Sue would have used the idol on Gabe, and that would have changed things completely. So I feel like, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to see, even if, but it just shows us that Sue can and does hold a grudge. And she is more than happy to hold that grudge. And I think next episode, I think it might even be Caroline next episode because of what we saw. And so I think in the grand scheme of things, while it makes sense for maybe Kyle and everybody else to get a Tuku out, I think for Caroline specifically, I think it's going to be really bad for her because I don't know if this shows in the edit of this episode, David, but Caroline and Sue and Gabe are very tight. They're a very tight 3, but Sue is leaning more towards being tight with Gabe. And Sue found an idol. She didn't tell anybody, but Caroline figured it out. And Caroline went to her and said, I know you have the idol. Congratulations, like blah, 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 blah. So Sue knows that Caroline knows that she has an idol. So it's a very interesting kind of like web of she knows this, but we're tight and all of this stuff. And I think it's all going to blow up next episode.
Yeah, definitely not the best for Caroline. I think it definitely puts her in the worst position out of everyone for this move.
Yeah. But so go ahead, David.
No, I was just going to say, I could definitely glean that Caroline and Sue were close. I knew that Gabe was sort of in the mix, but I couldn't see how close he was relative to everyone else. But I will say that just based on this singular episode, they weren't the focus of this episode. And Caroline sort of gave me the biggest like camp counselor, stereotypical new era player vibes. And that kind of turned me off from her, and she could be totally nice and amazing and wonderful. But in terms of everybody else, she just seemed very like, ooh, I'm happy to be here. And I was like, that doesn't usually fare well. Like the person who has that edit typically doesn't win a new era Survivor season, aside from maybe Marianne. She was different.
Yeah, I think the big thing with Caroline is she roots for everybody. She's very positive. She's very optimistic, but she's also very smart. So I think it's actually a very interesting like convergence of traits in a player, because she is that, very optimistic, but I think because she's so happy and just like smiling and all this other stuff, I think her smarts kind of or maybe go under the radar because she is this, she cheers for somebody else when, so last episode she lost a vote, but she cheered when like other people did a good job at like when she was losing the vote. So it's like she's rooting for everybody else. And I think that kind of lowers her threat level a little bit, even though she is really smart. And like it showed because she came up with, I think, a very brilliant, counter to Jeff Probst during the rights negotiation.
Yeah.
How do we feel about that? Yays, thumbs up, nays?
I thought it was really smart to think of that and come up with that. I thought that was a great negotiation. Fair trade.
Great. Yeah. David, did you like that? Did you like it better than the knife?
Oh my goodness. I loved it because I think that anytime we can get away from gimmick Survivor, from we're playing Mario Party and we've got a ton of freaking gadgets and gizmos, I am all for it. And the fact that everybody was on the same page, love it. And it adds an extra bit of risk, right? Like once you are out, it's pretty final. And that's serious. That raises the stakes. So I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was an incredible negotiation. And I loved that, Jeff went for it because obviously he didn't go for it when Caroline said, well, what if 4 of us give up the shot in the dark? But when everybody did it, he was gung-ho about it. And I thought that was super interesting. And I love when people think outside of the box. And we've seen 2 things now this season of people thinking outside of the box with the shot in the dark. And it's incredible. Like, it makes me so happy because the shot in the dark is the one twist, the one like thing that I actually really love. And I just think it was just like an incredible thing to add in. And I like the twist, but I liked how they used it this time. We have a comment. Was it not Kyle who offered the negotiation? Kyle was the one who said, what if all of us give up the shot in the dark? But it was Caroline's idea for the shot in the dark for 4 people. So Kyle was the one who was like, but what if everyone did it? So it was kind of like a Kyle, Caroline 2 duo. But, Caroline was the one who came up with the idea of the shot in the dark, which I would have never thought of.
No. Do you think since Rachel used hers and didn't have to give anything up, that she should have had to sit out of the competition?
She didn't mention it. That was smart. Don't bring awareness to it. Like, if you can slip under the radar and no one call you out on it, like, should she have? Probably. But the fact that no one, like, held her accountable to it is amazing.
I mean, I was happy with how it ended up because she tried to steal rice earlier in the season and now she kind of ended up stealing rice in her own way.
That's so true.
I was fine with it. I think she had already used it, which meant in theory, she felt like she was on the bottom. So like, I think it's okay. What do you think, Cara? Do you think that you would have liked for her to sit out?
I don't know if I would have liked her, like, I don't know. I just feel like, everyone else gave up something. Why didn't she have to,
Yeah. I don't know.
But
I mean,
it doesn't really matter.
Sitting out of the challenge versus sitting out, like giving up a shot in the dark is very different.
It is.
So I think if Jeff had countered and been like, all right, you all have to do this, but she has to sit out because she doesn't have one. I think if that was a term, like, I think I would have been okay with it, but I'm also okay with how it ended up. So
yeah, I agree.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And I was also very interested that Sam did not want to give his up.
Yeah. And then people like weren't really upset with him that he like was kind of not against it. Like they kind of didn't really even care that he was not for it. But he did anyway, so I guess that's why.
He ended up doing it because of peer pressure. Solely because of peer pressure. Gabe did convince him, but I don't think it was because of Gabe. I think it was because he was like, I don't want everyone to be mad at me, so fine, God, I'll do it. He
kind of had no choice.
Yeah, truly. He was between a rock and a hard place. A shot in the dark and a hard place. Hey-oh. But, it ended up working. They got the rice. Very exciting. But let's skip forward back to earlier part of the episode, the reward challenge. I'm a fan of the reward challenge. How do you guys feel? Do you like its own reward challenges, or do you like combo reward immunity?
I like separate.
I like separate so long as the reward isn't the sanctuary. I miss when we would at least go somewhere else and do something different. I'm sorry. Like, call me old school in that respect, but the sanctuary is getting kind of lame-shuary, and I kind of think we need to shake it up a little bit.
I agree. If they're going to be separate, they should make it something worth like extra playing for. When it's combined, fine, go to the sanctuary. But like, you're right. If it's separate,
yeah,
make it more.
And I understand. I understand that they're in Fiji and they can't do something crazy cool every single time. But like, go to a field. Go to Fiji. Go to a mountain. Go to
There's gonna be cool things in Fiji, right?
They went on things to do. Ride in 45.
Yeah.
Like Ryan brought up a couple of weeks ago, and he just brought it up right now. He knew what I was going to say. Why don't they bring that back like the barge? It's so easy. It's fun. It's, people can see it when they're like on the thing. It's interesting. It's different. It doesn't have to happen every time, but maybe the sanctuary's on the barge, but just like something else than just them on a beach.
Yep.
Hot take. I don't think that's that hot take. I think that's like actually kind of cold take, but I think we can all agree. Yeah, sanctuary is not where good things happen. Sanctuary is where like mid things happen.
Yeah, but we did get a social hour. Oh my god, social hour shout out again from Kyle.
Yeah, we did. So David, this was very big. A couple of episodes ago, one of the reward that they would win was they could go to the social hour. Yes, it was crazy. It was
production. Whoever is listening from production, hello, you're welcome. Credit is due here.
Literally, Kara and I were at a watch party, and I ran over, and I were like later on, I was like, "Can you believe it? They're saying it over and over again. I'm freaking out."
It was crazy.
It was so funny. But they had to be inspired some way, and I guess we were the ones who inspired them. It's okay. No big deal. But yeah, shout out again, which was amazing. But we got an interesting group of three. It was, correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, Rachel, and Kyle. So we had two of the original Gata, and then Kyle, the winner. Like he keeps winning. I was gonna say winner of the season, but he's not winning. He just like he keeps winning these. I don't know if he's winning. He might be winning.
I don't know. Genevieve said she'd vote for him if he was in the end.
That's true. Would you guys vote for like a physical threat if they get to the end?
I guess it would depend who they're up against.
Yeah, I guess it totally depends on who they're up against.
Yeah, I was almost going to compare him to Mike Holloway for a hot minute in terms of like just like steamrolling it. And I don't know whether or not he's got the social capital to back it up, because it doesn't seem from my perspective that he's done anything to wrong anybody. But I guess if you just continue to win immunity challenges, people just got to go, all right, well, that was impressive, but I don't know. You guys would know better than I would.
I mean, I think what you've seen is he's not the name on everybody's lips, and obviously he won this episode, but the last episode he didn't win immunity, right? Did he?
Yeah, no, he didn't. Gabe won. And he still wasn't the one that everyone, I don't even think he was mentioned once. And at that point, he had still won 3. He'd won the necklace 3. So I think that like they're not seeing him as a threat. But I think after a certain point, if you keep winning, then I think you're like, okay, well, maybe. But I do think that people have to like who they're giving $1 million to. So if they don't like them, like I don't think that Sue's getting up there and voting for Kyle. No. I feel like this is the most we've seen of like Kyle's thinking in the game. Like him talking about throwing Gabe's name out and how, if he doesn't get him first, Gabe's going to come for him. I feel like that was like some of like the most we've seen from him strategically thinking and like planning with other people. Something, just anything,
I would say the closest we got was Rome's vote off, where he kind of was like, I really don't like that guy.
That's true.
But I would say this is the closest episode that we've got to that same kind of thinking. But, he's an interesting character. And I think that, if he keeps winning and keeps going, I would be very interested to see if they do end up like voting for him in the end. But I don't know. It would be so weird to have somebody in the new era win just based on physical strength, basically alone.
What if it's a final 3 of Kyle, Andy, and Like Sue. Who wins? Andy?
Andy wins. So that would mean that Teeny, Saul, Sierra, Sam, Gabe, Caroline. Anybody else? 6-person jury, 7-person jury.
7?
I think there'd be somebody else. I think that Andy wins that.
But is this misleading? Like, is it like what we thought with Survivor 44, where we thought Carolyn really had a chance, and then we got to Final Tribal and she got 0 votes? Because yeah, we were led to believe that she had a lot of strategic acumen that we saw, but nobody else really was privy to, and therefore they didn't respect her enough to even give her a single vote. So that's what I fear might happen with Andy.
Rachel's the other person. Rachel's the other person. So that should Rachel's 7.
Like, I could see Sierra being bitter towards Andy in the end.
But I could see Sierra being bitter towards Andy, but I could also see Sam getting on the jury and being like, man, he really blew up on day 3, but like he somehow found his footing and like really turned it around. And he's the reason why like 4 of us are sitting here.
Do you think he'll do that?
I don't know. I don't know how close they are, but I mean, he could be upset that he was like used, but I think, that would be the one. I think Sam would be the person who would have to vouch for Andy in order to get maybe Sierra to vote for him, maybe get Rachel to vote for him, and maybe like Saul. And I think if the 4 of them vote, I think, but I think it would be very interesting if that happened. But I think it would have to be, I think in order for Andy to win, he would have to have a perfect Final Tribal Council. Perfect. Yep. I think he would have to answer the questions perfectly. I think you'd have to do his little monologue perfectly. And I think he would have to have a friend on the jury who would maybe give him a throwaway question or something. But I think it would be an uphill battle for him to get it.
He needs to start like dropping things in like at tribal councils and I guess around camp to people to show that maybe he's like doing something, but like, I'm still under the radar. Don't really look at me, but look at me in the end.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so my question is, from a viewership standpoint, how do we feel about people who are really bitter, either on the jury or during the game, or really emotional? Because we saw glimpses of Sue, a supercut, a montage of Sue being like, I hate this guy. He's so obnoxious about Kyle. And I think that makes for good TV. That's compelling to watch as a viewer, right? If everyone's just a game bot, that doesn't always make for the most entertaining television. So when people are on the jury and they are super bitter, personally, I'd love to watch it, right? Because eventually it'll blow over. It's just a game, right? It's for television. But what do you guys think? Do you feel like it is entertaining? Does it add something?
It is entertaining. And I feel like we don't see like enough bitter people. So I feel like when we do see it, it is fun to watch. And it is understandable, like when people are bitter. Like if you just got blindsided the night before and then you're sitting there watching them at the next tribal, like, yeah, you're going to be upset that like you're sitting on the jury bench and everyone else is still playing. So I feel like it's fair. And I feel like we don't see it enough. So it's fun to see when it does happen.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm very vocal. I don't think bitter juries exist. I think a bitter juror is a thing, but I don't think bitter juries in the whole exist. So I think if people are on the jury and they're quote unquote bitter, it's because somebody failed at the social aspect of the game. Famously, I hate Russell Hantz because I don't think that he played the game well. I mean, he didn't win twice. So, and I say the same thing about Amanda. Okay. Amanda also didn't play the game well, but I'm just saying, like, I think that, like, if Andy gets to final 3 and Sierra and Sam, because I think Daryl said on here that Sierra and Sam are both bitter about Andy, and they think that they'll have the jury turn against Andy. And like, if that's the case, then Andy did a bad job. Love him. Andy did a bad job at managing the jury, and that's if that is on him. But I just think I like seeing this kind of emotion because I think there are a couple of seasons, and I honestly don't even think that many seasons, of people, I would say in like the mid 30s, that were kind of voting based solely on strategy and nothing else. And I just don't think that that's what a juror can vote however they want to vote. It is their vote. just like in the world, when you vote for somebody, it's your vote. You have your own reason to vote for that person. And I think that in Survivor, I think it's very interesting. It's why it's an amazing game, guys. It's why it's so good, because it's like, if I get to the end, am I gonna want to vote for my friend to win $1 million? Am I gonna want the person who totally outwitted me and like made me feel like a fool? Maybe I'm like, or am I voting for the person who held their hand on an idol longer? Like, it's such a beautiful personal decision. But that wasn't what you asked. You asked, do I like seeing bitter people on TV? And the answer is yes.
Amen.
I love it.
Like, I wanted Gabe to be more bitter when he was walking out. Like, he was too civil. Like, he was too, like, okay with it, I felt. Like, I was expecting more from him.
I will say, what did we think of the "I'll be back" comment? Do you think that's him saying that it was him talking about being back to the jury, or do you think he's going to be back? Because I know he said in one of his ex interviews that if they don't bring him back, then he thinks somebody's getting fired.
Oh?
Yeah. Can I just say, I think because he thinks he's such a good cast.
Honestly, no offense, Gabe. I wanted to like you, and there were a lot of elements that I did like about you. But I think if you were a huge character, you've got to be good on your exit episode. They're going to edit you like a big character if you've got some arc, or even if they want to bring you back, right? Like Boston Rob didn't even make the jury on Survivor Marquesas, but he was a big enough character and made a mark, especially on his last episode, enough to be like, wow, like that guy totally did something. From my perspective, from the one episode I saw, Gabe didn't do that. Seems like a great guy, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I feel like people like were talking about Gabe, like being like strategic mastermind or strategic whatever, doing all this stuff in the game. But like, I feel like we didn't really see any of that on the show. So I'm like, what are we missing here? Like, what is Gabe doing behind the scenes that we're not seeing? Is he even doing anything? Like, why are we seeing like none of it?
Hey, you know what? I've been told fake it till you make it. And sometimes you manifest stuff because you say it. And maybe that's what Gabe is doing. Maybe Gabe is just manifesting, using his words and saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to be back. And if he says it enough, maybe it'll happen. And I respect the hell out of that.
And you know what? It was a memorable exit because people are talking about him saying, I'll be back, So kind of did something there.
Look at that. Okay. Look at that. Okay. But I do also want to talk about, we're talking about Gabe. Gabe got voted out. Spoiler alert, guys. But I do want to go back to the beginning of the episode and talk about Teenie a little bit, because we saw a little bit of fallout with Teenie and Genevieve, but also we got a rare kind of flashback to the vote where we actually heard what Teenie said when they voted for Saul. And we saw Teenie open their little like note thing and go, I am going to avenge you, Saul, or whatever they said. It was like something of that sort. And I feel like that's not something we hear unless someone is going far.
Yes. I think, frankly, the last time that we have heard that was Survivor Vanuatu, when Chris Doherty said that about voting out Sarge. And he said, like, I'm sorry, I have to do this. And then he had this amazing 6-1 comeback. So correct me if I'm wrong. Does anyone else remember an instance where that happened? Because that one's amazing. Also love you, Sifu.
Well, I mean, Sifu is here, and I just want to say thank you, Sifu. Love you guys. Love you. Who voted Sifu? Still, I couldn't say. I will say we've seen people avenge people. So like I would say Natalie and Natalia, San Juan del Sur. I don't think Natalie specifically said I'm going to avenge my sister, but like I think it was understood. And then I would also say Jeremy and Natalie again. Was it Natalie? Jeremy and for second chances? Was it Natalie? There was like a moment where he was like, I'm going to avenge you in second chances and he wins. So I feel like when we see that, that's usually a good sign. Plus, we saw how emotional Teenie got and how it affected Genevieve, and Genevieve felt bad.
Yeah.
Should Genevieve feel bad? I don't know, but we're all human.
It would be so fun if Teenie is like the reason Genevieve ends up being voted out. I think that would just be so fun.
No.
And
Okay.
like the story of
No,
the story of like Genevieve wanting Sol out because of Rome, like getting Rome out, and then, you know, then Teeny ending up getting Genevieve out because of the whole Sol thing. That would just be such a fun like storyline.
I think, yeah, Daryl's right. I think I was flipping it. Natalie said they were going to avenge Jeremy.
Mm.
It wasn't even Natalia. It was Jeremy. Thank you, Daryl. Yes, I think that this season is the season of revenge. Like, you know, I feel like and I think this speaks to a 26-day game, and we've talked about this before on the show, but like a 26-day game, you don't really have a lot of time to bury the hatchet, to move on, to mend fences. When the fence broke, it was about 15 hours before you have to go to the place that broke the fence again. So, you know, I think your fence just gets even more broken. And I think it's a lot harder to kind of move forward, which I think is one thing that I sometimes like about the 26-day game. I do prefer the 39-day game, but I wouldn't hate like every other season being like 26, 39, because I think it brings its own interesting challenges. But I will say we got a lot of interesting stuff from Teeny too. I know we talked about Andy's edit, but we also saw, you know, Teeny saying, I want to avenge Saul. We saw Teeny getting really emotional with Genevieve. And we also learned about Teeny's identity and more about Teeny and how they see themselves in the world. And first of all, very powerful moment. I was a ball of like tears. And I think seeing their bag burn and saying like, I'm going to come from the ashes, or whatever they said, it was like something of that sort, was just so powerful. And I'm like, either Teeny's winning or Teeny's going out in fire.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. The going out in fire. Yeah.
You know, their bag burns, and they also get burned by the fire because they don't build it fast enough.
That'd be some crazy foreshadowing. Yeah.
Do you see it happening? Do you see either of those things happening? I mean, I know Teeny hasn't had the best edit so far, and has been on the wrong side of the vote, but there's still a lot of game to be played.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Teeny has been like not getting their way time and time again, but I feel like you can also make a case for that in the end. Like they didn't get their way, but they still survived. Like they still made it to the end over other people. So I feel like, I mean, there's still a lot to happen in the game that we don't know what happens, but I feel like at this point, if Teeny's in the end, Teeny could win and would be a good winner.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Who has Teeny burned on the jury? Teeny said sorry to Sierra. Teeny said sorry to Saul. Teeny and Gabe weren't that close. So far, if Teeny's at the end, Saul loves Teeny. I think Sierra likes Teeny enough. That's like 2 people of a 7-8 person jury. That's a really good start.
Yeah. Like if it's Teeny and Andy in the end, like I think Sierra would vote for Teeny over Andy.
100%.
Easily.
100%. I think Saul with that vest. Wait, can we talk about that vest? I know that people have been talking about that for the internet loves the vest, but I do want to bring it up here. Who told him he could do that? Who told him that he could take our breath away with mere minutes left in the episode? How dare he? How dare he?
He ate and left no crumbs.
Anyone who makes a big fashion statement at Tribal on the jury gets my respect. Survivor Marquesas, where they all wore jean jackets, incredible. So also, as a Connecticut brother, I'm so proud of you for showing up. I expect nothing less. The Nutmeg State gets shit on a lot, reasonably so, but you are bringing back our good name, and I love you for it.
I mean, and it's funny because I'm pretty sure Kelly Nalbandian and Saul are from the same town.
Wow.
And they're both out in the same spot. Crazy, right? Isn't that crazy?
Don't say that like it's a good thing, Tegwyth.
What?
Don't say that like it's a good thing. You will be a Connecticut person to bring back the crown, okay?
Isn't Bruce from Connecticut too?
Bruce?
Yeah. No, I think he's from Rhode Island.
He's from Warwick, Rhode Island. I don't know why I know the exact town. Love you, Bruce.
So specific.
David's just standing outside your house right now, Bruce. I don't know what.
Yeah. Also, wait. Total aside, but is Teeny potentially? Actually, let me pause. Do we think that people who do the least damage are like the lesser of all the evils have a chance? Like, think about Sandra in Heroes versus Villains. Like, she didn't fuck people over as much as the other two, right? So couldn't that be Teeny?
Yeah. I don't see why not. I think people are saying that Teeny, and I think I saw it here, somebody saying that Teeny will go out and fire, or that Teeny's getting the Jake edit. And I've seen that people think that Teeny and Jake are very similar. And while I see that, I could also see if sitting next to the same, like specifically like two different people, like two people, the right two people, I think that Teeny could win. Because I mean, I would argue that the reason why Kenzie won is because Kenzie, and I think that Kenzie played a great game. I am a Kenzie stan. We know this about me. And she played a specifically social game. But, you know, I think that Ben didn't have a strong enough strategic game. While he was loved, he just didn't have a strong enough strategic game. And Charlie, people maybe just didn't want to vote for him for whatever reason. And so I think that like we've seen it kind of recently. And so I really don't see why we can't see it again. And so I would be very interested to see if Teeny does make it to the end, like what they're able to do at Final Trouble Council and what's able to, you know, come of a, you know, someone who's been on the wrong side of the vote, somebody who maybe was blindsided and upset and emotional, but maybe made the best out of it all, you know?
Yeah. Do you think it matters based on like voting track record or perception on the larger scale? Because I feel like Jeff Probst, for example, has a preference in terms of the winners that he holds in high regard. But at the end of the day, like if someone wins Survivor, they won Survivor. You can't take that away from them. You know what I mean? Like they're not any less of a winner just because they didn't win a certain amount of immunities or they weren't as strategic. What do you both think about that?
Yeah, I agree. Like you make it to the end and you win, you deserve to win. Like that's what it is. Like
the point of the game is making it to the end and convincing people that you potentially burned to give you $1 million. And that is however you make it to the end. Like let's talk about Erica, right? Erica did arguably nothing pre-jury because there was nothing for her to do except for hang out and chill because her tribe won over and over and over again. And there was no swap. So it didn't really matter. And her tribe just kept winning and winning and winning. And that worked out so well for her that she ended up also lucking out, drawing a random rock, turning back time. We all hate that twist, but it worked for her. And now she's $1 million richer. You know what I mean? So I don't think it really matters how you get to the end. And do I think that some ways of getting to the end are better than others? Because yeah, but that's my own personal opinion. We all have our own, preferences. Yeah. You get to the end and you convince people, hey, you should give me $1 million over this person and this person. Good for you. You deserve it.
Yeah. So Teeny, who really we're not seeing like too much like strategy or anything going into their game, kind of, like they're more social, like bonds they are building. And then we have Kyle, who is kind of just winning competitions and challenges, whatever. So like how could you compare those two in the end, like winning to the end or like social to the end?
It would be hard. It would be really hard to do because the games are so different. And I think that's why I think casting is really important, because I think creating a diverse group of people with different ways of looking at the world would lead to an interesting vote in that scenario. Because I think what that then comes down to is how you see the world and what you value in your own personal life. And as like a social person myself and an extrovert and somebody, who, even though like Teeny's on the wrong side of the vote or whatever, maybe I really liked Teeny and I'm just like, I really like this person, and maybe I really like Kyle too, because I think Kyle's great. He's a vegetarian and he's very strong. And I think that's very cool.
Although Teeny hasn't been on the wrong side. Like Teeny knows where the vote's going in the end.
That's true. Tini was only on the wrong side with Keyshawn, and at the very
He
end,
didn't have a vote.
Saul. But they didn't know about Saul going into tribal council.
That's okay. True.
The only reason why they learned about Saul was because of everything that happened.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know. But we see, we have somebody here. Rosafa also says, my favorite juries are the ones that respect the people that voted them out rather than despise them. And that is completely fair.
Yeah.
David, what do you think? Who would you vote for? The strong person or the social person?
Honestly, $1 million is $1 million. It's a big thing, right? And you also have someone to be the figurehead of your season. And personally, I wouldn't want to go to sleep at night knowing that someone I genuinely thought was a crappy person won. I don't care if they outmaneuvered me. I don't care if they had the best strategic games or they won the most immunity challenges. If they didn't make me feel good and something about me just kind of grossed me out, I'm not going to vote for you. I'm sorry. I think at the end of the day, like, you're bestowing a great gift on someone. And someone's going to say, you were on Survivor blank. So-and-so won your season. That's going to get brought up a million freaking times. So unless you're comfortable with that person being the representative for your season, I couldn't see myself voting for that.
Yeah.
Good point.
And I think that also, just to add on to that a little bit, I think the important thing here is that does not necessarily mean that this person didn't burn me specifically. I think Dee is a very good example of somebody who burned a lot of people and made it to the end and made people feel good about her game and was like, hey, I did this. I voted you out, and then won and dominated her season. And I think there is a way to dominate a season, burn people, vote people out, blindside people, but still have them like you. Because, think about Kelly's blindside from 45. Kelly was so shocked. She forgot where her torch was. She was very, very upset. And I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure Dee was in on that. And they were pretty close friends at that point. And Kelly and Dee are like besties to this day, and so I think there is a way to play Survivor and blindside people without them hating you. Now, maybe it just has to be the right, recipe, already best friends, whatever it is. But it's just a very interesting, guys, it's an interesting game. Let's have a podcast about it.
Lots to think about.
Overall, I felt like this was a good episode. Cara, how did you feel about this episode?
I liked it too. I feel like we got a lot of like classic aspects. Like we had like Gabe, having his moment where he said he feels like the best he's ever felt in the game and then ends up leaving. And then, we had a lot of aspects of like just Survivor in this episode that I enjoy seeing. So I thought it was a good one.
Yeah. David, how did you feel about the episode?
Yeah, I think it felt like a connective tissue episode. Like it wasn't one of the most pivotal episodes of the season, but it was done really well. And like you were saying, Cara, like people were getting those cliche moments where they are falling from grace, or you see someone experiencing something for the first time. For example, Sam never having kiwi for the first time. I know that was small, but it was the moment where as a viewer, I was like, are you serious? Like how has this never happened to you before? But it was just a cute, fun moment. And it just shows you how Survivor brings people together that maybe never would have interacted before. And that's what the show is all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought it was a great episode. Is it the best episode of the season? Probably not. But was it an important episode? Absolutely. I think we learned a lot about the cast. I think we, got to see interesting things that I think are going to continue on throughout the season. And I really like the season overall, and so I'm really excited to see what happens next. Now, before we get to our commercial and get to social hour and all of the other fun things that we have planned for the podcast, is there anything that you guys want to make sure we talk about? We cover everything?
If we're talking about Shot in the Dark for the last time this season, I just want to give a shout out to the first person to be screwed over by the Shot in the Dark, Sydney Siegel. Hope you're thriving. I saw that you are now just living your best. Actually, not now. You've always been living your best life. And I just want to give you a shout out because you are an icon.
I forgot. She was screwed over by the Shot in the Dark. That's crazy. Shot in the Dark. Crazy twist. Cara, anything else that we need to make sure we cover?
No, I feel like we got it all. I think
before we go though, very important. Sorry, Ryan Irwin, friend, funny comedian, did want to make sure that we brought something up. Pepito, get your butt off of that. Just remember, we need to make sure that we're holding space. The lyrics of Defying Gravity. So we'll just do that right now. Thank you so much. This is a wig commercial, guys. Sorry. Anything else you want to talk about before we go to commercial?
I think that was a good ending note for the commercial. That was perfect.
Just make sure, hold space, everybody. All right, we'll be right back after this commercial.
What's up, guys? I'm Todd Herzog, the winner of Survivor China, and I am here with Survivor Now podcast, the best source for Survivor information, to show off what I do for a living. So I make custom Funko Pops. If you haven't seen or heard, you can check it out on Instagram at Todd's Pop Shop, or you can message me, toddspopshop@gmail.com, to order your own. And if you mention this podcast, you will get $10 off and a free torch. So it's pretty freaking awesome. I'm going to show you a few right now. We've got Troyzan here, Phil from The Amazing Race, JLP, host of Australian Survivor, and look, little Charlie. Anybody you could possibly imagine or want yourself playing an LRG or an ORG, or just with your loved one or family or pets or anything like that, shoot me a message. I'm happy to make it. You also have the chance to win a free custom pop if you sign up for Survivor Now Podcast Fantasy League. So it's pretty awesome. And it's fun. Like, who doesn't want to be a part of that? So yeah, hit me up, get your custom pops. It's great holiday gifts, great birthday gifts. We got a new season of Survivor right around the corner. I'm excited. I'm sure you're excited. Let's get this going.
It's bumping here in the club. Okay, so we did have some questions that I wanted to make sure we got to. If you are watching live, make sure to send in any questions you may have about the episode. But I did want to start with this question from Milan. Milan asked, who do you think is most in trouble to go next? David, I'll start with you. I know that you have an interesting perspective because you haven't seen the entire season, but I would love to hear what you think is going to happen next.
Genevieve has totally made her target super big after this. Considering it was between her and Gabe for this vote, I think that she is definitely a concerning player going forward. I think if somehow people realize how much power Rachel has, then maybe her, because I think she's in a really good position. And sometimes when the person who is in a secret good position gets exposed, then they could be screwed over. So I'm going to say Genevieve and then Rachel.
I totally see that. Cara, what about you?
Yeah. I agree. I definitely think Genevieve, and like we see in the preview, there's a lot of Rachel talk going around. So I could see it being Rachel, but I also like kind of agree, like we said earlier, maybe Caroline after the whole thing with Sue. You never know what Sue could pull off. She could be really mad. I don't know. So, but I definitely think Genevieve.
Yeah, I think Genevieve makes the most sense. I will say, though, I think that Genevieve is an interesting player that I think she was able to dodge this one. She might not be able to dodge the next one, but I feel like if there's anybody who I think could do it, I think it would be Genevieve. Genevieve and Andy have a kind of a duo, maybe not as a tight duo, but when Andy needed somebody, Genevieve was like, I need somebody, let's do this thing. So maybe we have like Andy protecting her a little bit, and we're seeing this like alliance form with Andy in it. And I know Genevieve's not in it, but I think that could be interesting. I'm mostly worried about Caroline next, because I just keep going back to why would they put in that moment of Sue being so mad when it really didn't have anything to do with the episode. And I know I'm reading the edit a little bit too much when I do that, but it's just like, it bothered me. I was like, I get it's maybe exposition, but usually the exposition has a meaning. So I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking, but who knows? I guess there are 18 people who know. We have a question from Ryan Irwin. Ryan Irwin sent us on the TikTok. Did Teeny's bag burning foreshadow of fire making loss? We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I still think it's an interesting thing. Do you think they would foreshadow that, David?
Well, I think that we saw a little bit of this with Carson in Survivor 44, where we constantly saw clips, maybe not constantly, but we often saw clips of him looking into a fire, and then that was his fate. So maybe, sorry, I know that's not like a really definite answer, but maybe.
Maybe. Kira, what do you think?
I do I like this theory, like hearing it now. Like I feel like it definitely could be that. And also like, there's been shots of Rachel with fire reflecting in her glasses. So maybe a teeny Rachel fire thing happening. I don't know. But I mean I wouldn't want Teeny to lose in fire, but I feel like that kind of would be like a cool foreshadowing moment. Or maybe Teeny wins fire.
Maybe. I think Teeny has something to do with fire. We have some people in the comments over on TikTok. Survivor is their username. Just says, I think Teeny's going out in fire. We have, Sylvia says, I think Teeny will win fire against Rachel. So I think that, it's going to be interesting. And I definitely think that like we will. I think the editors are having fun. I think that's one thing that the new era is showing us is that the editors and production are having fun creating the show for us. And I think they like to keep us on our toes. And I don't think that they like to do the same thing more than like 2 times. But I think that this fire thing is very interesting. And I think they would put it in the show no matter what. But I really think that it means something. I think it means something. We have somebody over here, a TikToker, saying, I think Sam is losing in fire. Oh. So we've got opinions and ideas everywhere, and I love that. I like that we all have our own perspective. Okay, so we have this question from Razafa. Do you think that Caroline is under the impression that she came up with the Gabe vote since they didn't include her in the OG plan until she talked to Andy? Kara, what do you think about that?
Oh. I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know.
Like, I don't think it was that big of like an idea that they would go for Gabe, Like I feel like everyone was kind of and it's just like who you talk to, So I don't think it was like one specific person coming up with it.
David, how did you feel? Do you think that Caroline has a high opinion of herself with this vote?
I can't tell just based on the single episode, but I do think that, like you said, Tegwyth, that Caroline is definitely positive and enthusiastic, and I think that she doesn't come off as cocky. So even if we might see it as she thinks she's in the driver's seat, probably doesn't come off across to everybody else that she thinks she's in the driver's seat, which is a good thing. You don't want to be like the big figurehead, right? You don't want to be the Genevieve.
Yeah.
I actually don't think she wants to be seen as somebody who drove the vote. I think she's a very smart player, and I think she kind of likes being maybe in the shadows for a little bit, right? And at this part of the game.
I guess she was like kind of an like important part into making this vote happen, because I feel like if she was strongly against it, then it wouldn't have gone that way. But like she was for it, so it went off. And I feel like if she wasn't for it, there could have been a way to change the vote, especially like definitely telling Sue that it was going to happen. Like, so I think she was important to it, but I don't think it was like her idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, she had, and we know this and she knows this, but she did. You were right. She's the only one who knew that, should she tell Caroline or should she not tell Caroline? And she knew that, hey, not Caroline, sorry, Sue. If I tell Sue has that idol and maybe she'll play it. So I think it's interesting because we're seeing it from the overview perspective, because we know these things about these people, but I don't think that Caroline thinks that she was the one that did that,
Yeah.
Okay, we have another question that was sent in on the YouTube comments. Dakota Anderson, we talked about this a little bit, said, as of right now, who do you think is in the fire making challenge? So Cara said Teeny and Rachel. Do you agree with that, David?
Yes, I think that Teeny is probably going to be a part of the fire making challenge. Who else? I don't know. In my ideal situation, they would just throw away the fire making challenge altogether, because I think that Survivor hinges on, and Jeff says this, it being unpredictable, and we don't know what's going to happen. And forced fire making is something that has become predictable for over 10 seasons now. So I personally would not be upset if they said, that thing that you've totally been expecting, that's not going to happen anymore. So I would love if they did the bait and switch.
And they are kind of switching things up this season, I feel like. So I feel like if they're going to do it on a season, it's going to be this one. It's kind of going that way.
Agreed. I don't think I started this comment, and I wish I would have. Someone earlier in the thing said, why do I feel like this season is getting a final 2?
I saw that, yeah.
And I'm like, I was feeling this whole season that we were going to get a shot in the dark hit, because I think they were teasing the shot in the dark. We got a shot in the dark hit, but not like a shot in the dark hit, because it was like, never gave it up. But get rid of the fire making challenge. Get rid of it. I just think that, like, I think David, you said it perfectly. Like, when Survivor is predictable, it is not as interesting for the viewers because the players know what to do. It's like when the swap was happening back in the day, and they would bring their bags because they would be like, all right, it's day like 13 or whatever it was. Okay, it's time for the swap. Like, get ready. And you go back to like Pearl Islands when they thought they were going out to a photo shoot. And that's why Lil was wearing that outfit. That's why, who got voted out first in Pearl Islands? What's her name?
Nicole Delma.
Nicole. That's why Nicole was wearing the tube dress with like no underwear, and she got like 2 buffs or something. So like, the Survivor being unpredictable is a part of its DNA. And I feel like that kind of has not been its focus for the last, not even the new era, even before the new era. It's just been, the same thing. We were watching. So if you guys, this is something I highly recommend. The Survivor Live channel on Paramount Plus. It is just a fun way to watch Survivor because you can't choose it. It's just like comes on. And if you have Paramount Plus, it's just on one of the live channels. And Guatemala was on. And I was like, that's so fun. And the episode that I came in on was Judd's Blindside. Iconic. I was like, how lucky am I? And their immunity challenge was when a big like game board, and when they stepped on a tile, they had to flip that over and they could not step on red tiles. And I'm like, why don't they do immunity challenges like this anymore? It's interesting. It's compelling. It's different. It's not just the same thing. It's not endurance. It's not something else. It's using a different part of their body, their brain. And I'm just like, why don't they do things like this anymore?
Yeah, switch it up.
Keep us on our toes.
You got to switch it up. Sort of an aside to that, but if anyone has had the chance to see Survivor South Africa Maldives or Survivor South Africa Santa Carolina, those were way, way back in the day. But I think they shook things up in a fun way. And I kind of like when Survivor takes risks. I'm not necessarily saying that we need to have Ghost Island again or Island of the Idols, calculated risks. But even just like a fun new thing with the challenges, like you said in Guatemala. Bring back Judd. Unrelated. Bring back Judd Sargent. Judd, are you still working as a doorman in New York City? I will come bother you at work.
I'm pretty sure he retired. I think he retired. Because
retirement party. Why was I not invited?
Yeah, what the hell? I learned this. I think I could be wrong, but he went to an LRG in Brooklyn. Oh. Yeah. And I was like,
no way, man. Cool. No way, man. I can't believe that, man. That's insane, man.
Scumbags. He said scumbags twice. Iconic. It's iconic. See, Daryl says, I prefer the older challenges. There was archery in Africa. Fun times. Back coconut chop. Bring back, archery. Bring back hand on a hard idol.
Yeah. Bring back the huge boulder challenge in Africa where people are totally run over by boulders.
Bring back the one in Gabon, where they were like rolling the thing down the hill, but it was like soccer. I love that.
Yeah. And Randy says, Ace, move. I love the fucker.
Bring back Ace. Hot take. I know.
Bring back Randy.
Bring back Randy.
He's the only Randy I love. Let's make it happen.
Bring back Randy. I love Randy. He is like, I don't know if I love him or he's the only reason why I even use Twitter anymore. Randy has his Twitter, his tweets are so funny and they're so mean. They're so mean, but they're so Randy, you know. But yes, bring back challenges that are not just the same thing. Please.
Do you still believe it's just the same thing in different fonts, Tegwyth?
A little bit. I mean, really big puzzle pieces. Get a ball in a hole. Heavy things. Endurance. Yeah, I mean, when it gets to this part of the game, it's always just endurance. It's always how long I can hold something, how long I can do, which is interesting sometimes, but it's not interesting. Sorry, guys.
Are we idealizing the older challenges though? Because I remember I was rewatching Survivor the Amazon recently, and they had shuffleboard as an immunity challenge.
I'm not saying all of them are good.
Okay.
Not all of them. There are some that are not great. Yeah, I like the first challenge ever on Survivor where they're just like paddling water, like what's it called, dog paddling in water with the fire. Yeah, that's not great. But some of them are interesting and different. You know what one I would like for them to bring back? The one with the knowledge. He tells a story and you have to go through and like make sure that it's the right thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Ryan had this idea. I'm sorry, guys. I'm off on a tangent. Ryan had this idea today. So I need to give credit. It's Ryan's idea. He said, what if instead of a Fire 4 final or fire making challenge, 2 contestants have a quiz, and the quiz is things about the jury. And the person who gets the most right stays in the game, and the person who gets the most wrong is out. But it's like, they don't tell you this ahead of time. You get like fire making stuff and all that stuff. You think it's a fire making challenge, you go, and it's like, actually, we're not doing fire making. We're doing a jury test. And how well do you know your other contestants?
That's kind of genius. They kind of did that.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that would be. Or even like just like season trivia of like things that happened throughout the season,
I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really interesting, and I think it was a very good idea. And if you use that Survivor, Brian copyrighted it. I don't know. Somehow. Ryan Irwin, sorry, I was reading a comment. Ryan Irwin says, what if they made all of the final 4 make fire and the first 3 that make it make the final 3?
Oh, okay. See, that would be a surprise. That would be a little twist on it.
Twists. Some twists are good. Some twists are not great, but I like that. Different Ryan. This was Ryan Irwin in the comments. Okay, we do have another question. This is another one from Dakota. Dakota asks, do you think that someone will play an idol for someone else this season? It's hard to say.
No, I don't think so.
We're actually not going to see any idols be played correctly because I think people are just going to play them.
Yeah. And I mean, okay, so who has them? Rachel and Sue. Is that it?
That's it. And Sam has the remnants of his old one that he could probably fashion into a fake idol.
Oh, yeah. When is that going to come back?
I don't think it ever will.
That's disappointing.
I think I went down the conspiracy theory hole a little bit too hard on that one. I don't know. Ryan Irwin in the comments says, I think Rachel will use it to make a move on Andy. That would be interesting. That would be interesting.
What if that happens next episode and Andy does go?
No!
No Andy going home talking.
I can't hear you.
That's not allowed.
Sylvia says, I think Sue gets voted out with hers. And then somebody else added the same thing. Sue's idol is pretty much invisible. I feel like she may get voted out with it or play it incorrectly. So that would be.
Truthfully, I didn't realize that Sue had an idol until both of you brought it up, because when Rachel was in confessional, it said hidden immunity idol. I didn't catch, unless they did show it and I missed it, Sue had an idol. I didn't even see that was when she was in confessional.
Yeah.
Did I miss that, or did they just not?
No, I didn't see it either. I think you just had to know the information.
Because why would they bring it up? Rachel didn't talk about her. That's not true. Maybe she did, but they said it in confessional, and I thought that was helpful. But they didn't about Sue. So maybe that is like an indication that it's not going to be used.
I don't know. Very interesting. There's a lot of games still to be played, and I think it's going to be an interesting couple of episodes coming up.
What if Sue goes next episode?
That would be wild.
Sue like kind of could be a threat. Like she does make it far in the immunity challenges. She won one.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Kyle knows that Sue doesn't like her. And now, like, what if Caroline's gonna want Sue out because of what happened with this?
And then the idol. What if Caroline tells everybody about the idol?
Yeah.
I could see all of these things happening. I think it's going to be another Luvu. I think that getting a Luvu out makes sense, but I still don't think it's going to help them. So
are they reusing the same names for previous seasons? Because Luvu was 41. That was like the tribe that Erica was on.
Wasn't that Lavu?
No, that was Luvu.
Really? Oh, then maybe they're reusing.
Lavu is Lavu this season?
No, it's Luvu. No, it's Tuku.
I was gonna say.
What are you talking about?
It's Tuku. I think I'm saying Luvu the entire.
I thought you were like making a comparison.
No, Tuku. I mean Tuku. There's a Lavo and a Tuku.
Yeah.
This episode or this season. And Agata. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay, we have a quick question from the TikTok. Do you think the editors from Protoman21, do you think the editors want us to like Andy? Yes. I think they do.
Yeah, but I feel like it's getting like half and half. I feel like there's some people who love Andy and there's some people who really are annoyed by Andy and don't like him. So I don't know what the goal was. I think he's just entertaining.
I think they want us to be entertained.
Yeah.
I think they want us to like Andy a little bit.
It's working on me, whatever they're doing. So
I agree. Okay, we have one other question that was sent in from TikToker. Do you think Survivor 50 will be 26 days? I don't think so. Do you think so, David? David's face makes me believe that he thinks it's going to be 26 days.
I think that when we get our hopes up with Survivor, we're usually let down.
That's true.
So I think that if we say, oh my God, of course, it has to be 39 days. They wouldn't just wait on us to like expect all this stuff for the 50th season and just, not give it to us.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Sorry.
Expect the best, but plan for the worst.
Precisely.
Yep.
Kara, what do you think?
I think it'll probably be 26. Really? I don't know. Yeah. I mean, unless they have like really great people cast and they're like, you know what, we want this to go longer. Maybe it all depends on like casting.
I could see them casting 20 people for 50 rather than 18.
Maybe it'll be 30 days.
I could see them. See, I think that they would I don't think it's ever going to go back to 39. I think I could see a world where it gets pushed up to 30.
Yeah.
Which beggars can't be choosers. So I'm okay with that. Well, thank you everybody so much for sending in your questions. It always brings up really fun conversations that we don't get to talk about while we're going over the episode. So thank you so much for that. But we are going to our next segment. One of my favorites of of our episode, which is Kara's sweet thing of the episode. All right, Cara, for those new to the podcast, please tell us what the sweet thing of the episode is, the thought behind it.
Yes. So my cousin Kateri and I have a podcast called the Sweet Things Podcast. And at the end of each episode, we give our sweet thing of the week, which is usually like a food or a snack or a drink or whatever, something we liked. And so for Survivor, it's a little different because we don't have a lot of food options. So it's just something we liked in the episode, something we liked that episode. I kind of am struggling with this episode though. I know we talked about it, but I think this week or this episode, I'm going to go with the shot in the dark negotiation. I really liked that. I thought it was, out of the box.
Yeah.
And that's my sweet thing.
I think that's a good one. my sweet thing of the episode is going to be not the entire segment of Sue talking about Kyle, but near the end of that segment, Sue, it was like saying, I hate Kyle, machete and coconut. Like, Kyle's the worst, machete and coconut. Like, that is beautiful. I would also say another thing I was thinking about was the teeny segment in general, just because it was very touching. And then in turn, their burned bag, which sucks, but it was like an interesting kind of motif. But I don't know, the machete and the coconut is wild.
That's a good one.
David, what's yours?
My sweet thing has to be Teeny talking about their identity and how their insecurities in the game relate to insecurities that they've had as a whole outside of the game. I think that shows a lot of awareness. They're super cognizant of how real life can play a part in the game. And it was just so vulnerable. Teeny, like, thank you for opening up to the entire viewership of Survivor about your insecurities so candidly. That was beautiful. While also being able to say, how am I going to harness this in terms of the game? That's powerful. So props for the vulnerability.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just want to say, if you do not follow Teeny on Instagram, you should definitely go do that. It was Teeny's a great follow just to begin with, but Teeny actually wrote 4 years ago a love letter to Survivor. And if you ever doubted that Teeny is a super fan of Survivor, go read their love letter that they wrote to Survivor. It was about Survivor. It's so good. And I think that, this is a show that means a lot to them. And you can tell in the edit, and you can tell on the screen. But you can see how it means to, like, what it means to them, in the real world as well. So definitely go follow Teeny and go check out that if it's still posted.
Yeah. And just, it makes it so fun to watch Teeny because it makes them so relatable. And like, it's like you're watching like someone, like, I don't know how to describe it, but like, it's hard to not root for Teeny. And like, I feel like it's just someone, I don't know I can't even think of the words, but like, it's like watching like seeing a fan and someone who like loves it so much and be on the show and playing just hits different than just like someone they just like found and cast. I don't know how to describe it, but like it's enjoyable to watch Teeny play and be on the show and get to live this out. So
it's fun to watch somebody actively get to live their dream. Like,
yes,
it's
exactly.
a really fun thing to be able, like, today went to go see Death Becomes Her on Broadway, and an understudy was in for Michelle Williams for like Velma von whatever. And I believe it might have been their Broadway debut because at like bows, she was just like crying, and like the Megan Hilty and like the whole cast like gave her a huge hug, and it was like that woman is like living her dream. And it's just really fun to like watch people like live their dream. And I'm seeing that in Teeny, and I'm seeing that in like a lot of different Survivor players, but like definitely in Teeny. But I think all amazing, sweet things this week. It was, great episode. And now it comes to the ultimate award for Survivor Social, the Social Butterfly of the Week. David, why don't you tell the viewers who we give the Social Butterfly Award to? David came up with this award, everybody, so he should know.
Whoever came up with this deserves a raise because this was just a genius idea. But the social butterfly is the person who we think for this episode specifically, notwithstanding anything else, played the best social game of the episode.
It's a big one this week. I feel like there are some contenders. Somebody in the comments over on TikTok said Saul, which I respect, even though he literally can't play a social game anymore. But like, with that outfit, he's definitely wooing some votes. Saul's actually going to win the game. People are like, I don't care. I can't vote for him. But that vest, Saul, $1 million. David, do you know who you think that should win the Social Butterfly this week? Do you have an idea?
I do. I think that the obvious answer is Andy because he was talking to a lot of different people, but I also believe in quality over quantity. And I think he may have just seen a lot of stuff at a lot of people. And I'm going to say Rachel, because Rachel reminds me of Leanne Slabby from Survivor Vanuatu, of not the figurehead, but pulling a lot of strings. and in a really good position. And we got some good confessionals of Rachel where she said, like, I don't want to be out in front. I have to be careful about like my threat level and how I maneuver. And just for those confessionals alone, I'm going to say Rachel.
I think that's a really good one. Cara, who are you thinking?
I'm thinking Sam, because I feel like Sam, you know, I feel like he was actually like a big part of the Gabe vote, and I feel like he's rallying people together into this outcast alliance, and like for him to like somehow kind of have like, I don't know, I feel like he not as under the radar, but people aren't really looking at him as much, and he's like still making connections with people. And like for Rachel to not be more upset with him after him immediately going and telling Sol that he was the vote after she's like, please don't blow up my spot. Like, I feel like he is doing very well socially with everyone. So, especially this episode. So, Sam.
And I'm going to round it out and say the entire Gata. Old Gata. Because I'm going to say Andy. I do think that, you know, I do agree with you, David, that it's quality over quantity. However, and this is me just looking at the edit, maybe a little bit too hard. I just normally feel like when people are going and talking to a lot of people, we see it in a very negative light. And this time it seemed like a neutral to positive light, which I think was a very, very interesting turn of events. And I do think like he is making grounds with people who maybe he doesn't even really need to talk to, such as Sue. And the fact that he's getting brought in on an alliance that when he went against Sam twice. And, you know, the fact that, you know, he went against Rachel twice and Rachel's still going to be working with him. And so I think that, you know, goes to show that he does have some kind of social ability. So I'm going to say, Gata, congratulations. All three of you winning Social Butterfly this week, which is so funny. Thank you, David. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I am so honored to talk about Survivor 47 with both of you. You both have such good perspectives and informed perspectives. Love Survivor. Bring back Gandia Johnson. # love Gandia Johnson. And that is all. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. David, where can the people find you? Are you on the internet? Just in, you know, in case people want to talk to you about Survivor?
This is the first time I've touched a computer in about 8 years. No, I'm just kidding. You can interact with me at Ecologist David on Instagram. I don't use social media a ton these days, but I am always opinionated when it comes to Survivor. So if you send me something Survivor related, I will probably respond to you.
Amazing. And Cara, where can we find you?
At the Sweet Things podcast on Instagram, you know, episodes on Thursdays. Yeah, there.
Amazing. Well, thank you everybody who was chatting with us, talking with us. This was a really, really fun episode. It was fun to go back down memory lane, have David here. We do have some fun shows next week. We've got usually we're on a Thursday night, but now we get to talk about the Wednesday shows. Wednesday, 7 p.m. We do have the pre-show. So make sure to check that out. That one's going to be a lot of fun. And right after the episode that same night, we are going to have the after show with the whole crew. Survivor Social is not going to be on Thursday next week because of Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. But make sure to check us out. I think we haven't settled on a date or time yet, so just keep an eye out for that. And then next week, the whole crew is back Friday noon, Survivor Stock Watch, and got something for you on Saturday. Thank you, everybody, so much for chatting with us, sending in questions. Always a blast. And as always, don't forget to stay social, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.